Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC. It's time for the full review of the Arrma Gorgon. This is a brand new two-wheel drive electric 1/10 scale, I guess, monster truck that just came out a couple weeks ago. So I've been driving it, bashing it, breaking it, fixing it, tuning it, all that good stuff. Just want to share my thoughts on this vehicle. Now, the way the review works, we go through I think 6 different categories, giving it a rating from 1 to 5 stars, and it's great on a curve. So competitors of the Gorgon are going to be things like the Traxxas Stampede two-wheel drive, the ECX Amp MT, which I think they still sell, the Arrma Granite Voltage, which I think you can also still get. So yeah, a lot of different two-wheel drive vehicles out there from the major manufacturers, and the way the rating works is we give it a rating of 3 stars if it's average within all those other vehicles, 5 stars if it's best in class, 1 star if it's worst in class. So it's not as compared to like a 4x4 or an 8 scale or any other vehicle. It's just compared against all the other two-wheel drive vehicles you can buy. So yeah, let's get into the review. So the first category is the electronics, and the radio that comes with is the Spectrum SLT2 radio. This is not compatible with your DSMR vehicle, so it does come with a special radio. Nice little, fairly comfortable radio actually, with a nice foam grip. Does not have all the adjustments, but does have steering rate and steering trim, which are the 2 most important things. It does take 4 AA's. I do recommend kind of marking which side is positive, which side is negative, because it's unmarked on the vehicle. But yeah, pretty basic radio, some decent functionality. Also comes with these as the electronics in the vehicle, a brush system. So this is going to be a 2S capable or nickel metal hydride capable brush system. This vehicle does come in a few different configurations. Some come with a nickel metal hydride battery and basic charger, and some come sort of standalone without that. And then the black edition you can actually get as a kit that you have to assemble. So that's the one I picked up, which is pretty nice. Nice little standard brush motor. I'm not sure how many turns. I think it's like 21 or 25 turns. Maybe it's more like 12 turns. I don't really know. It does come with nice 32 pitch gearing on there, a little 13-tooth pinion, and yeah, so this is the basic electronics. It does come with an integrated receiver to work with that SLT2. I think you can actually use the receiver by itself with like a different ESC. I'm not totally sure. I vaguely recall that being a possibility with some of the other combo brush units, but yeah, decent little package. It is fairly basic. Obviously, this is an entry-level vehicle. Let's take off the body. The body, as you can see, is a little beat up. It does have quite a few cracks here in the front. A little bit of integrated skid guard there on the back. And then these posts which mate into the chassis with these giant kind of unusual single body clips. So that's kind of unusual body clips underneath and hidden. My actual vehicle has been upgraded. I am actually running a BLX 100 ESC, and then on the motor side I'm actually running a 4300 kV 4-pole 36 by 60 can motor. It's brushless, of course, so I did upgrade the electronics. It's not something that normally comes with, and I'm running a Spectrum receiver. Wheels and tires, we're going to pop off and take a look at the vehicle itself. But electronics wise, yeah, the motor ESC are actually pretty good. I do like the Spectrum radio. I think it's one of the best, sort of entry-level radios out there. Obviously higher end vehicles are going to have nicer radios and receivers and stuff, but for a very basic radio and a very basic electronics package, I think this is actually best in class. Servo works totally fine. It is metal geared and waterproof. So within this, very basic two-wheel drive entry-level class, I'm going to give it 5 stars. I think this is the best in class electronics package. Speed-wise, this is certainly up there with the other vehicles you can buy, if not faster. I think the ECX is somewhere in like the 15 mile per hour range. The Stampede probably a little bit quicker than that, maybe more like 19, 20. But this goes about 25 miles per hour. It has a better radio than all those other vehicles, and is quite nice overall. Totally adequate as an entry-level vehicle. 5 stars in the electronics category. Now, the Gorgon definitely shares some similarities with its predecessor, the Voltage line. Looking at it, even though it is pretty similar with the gray tubular chassis, I don't know what you call that, plastic shocks front and rear, non-adjustable turnbuckles, the two-wheel drive with the slider shafts and stuff. It is actually a completely new vehicle. I don't think it shares like any of the parts actually with the older one, so it is kind of cool that they use that as a basic design point and then kind of improved it. I would say almost in every category it's way better. The slider CVDs are much stronger and more durable than the previous. I think they had like plastic outdrives with a dog bone or something like that. the plastic shocks are much improved as well. They look very similar to what comes on the 4x4 lineup, so nice improvements there. They did add a slipper clutch, which is a huge improvement, especially if you're running brushless power. This is mandatory. The old Voltage did not have that. The chassis is also quite a bit improved. It is bottom loading for the battery, which will only hold like a 2S pack. You could fit like a 3S soft pack that's, you know, kind of a mini pack or something like that, but really this is designed for 2S. The old one had like 18650 batteries, which is really kind of weird. Electronics are mounted up top. The servo is mounted pretty much the same as the old one, but arms, you know, upper links, everything looks all completely new. I think the bumpers are all new. So yeah, this is pretty much a new vehicle all the way around, although it does share some similarities with the old one. But design-wise, yeah, I think this is best in class. The Stampede I'm not a big fan of. That thing, it's pretty old, pretty hard to take apart. It does have a high center of gravity chassis. It does have like weird offset wheels that are not, you know, interchangeable front and to back. The E6 MT is not too bad, but it is based off a very old platform. I think the slipper on that doesn't work quite as well. It is rear motor, whereas this is a mid motor, so that is kind of interesting with the design. And then you have the Voltage, which I mentioned did have a lot of deficiencies that I think they pretty much all addressed within this vehicle. So design-wise, I think this is best in class once again. 5 stars. The slipper works really well. The steering, everything works really well. It even has a little bit of adjustments here on the front if you want to get a little bit different roll center, so you can actually, what is that? That would be lowering the roll center in the front. So yeah, pretty interesting. The slipper, you know, again, I think it's even got a little mount here for a fan or something up top. Not really sure what that's going to be. Maybe you can mount an ESC. I'm not really sure, but yeah, overall, nothing weird. Mid-motor is definitely a little bit different within this class, not very common, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a negative thing. But design-wise, with the shocks, with the CVDs, 12mm hexes, this is an excellent class. I'm sorry, it's 14mm hexes, but I do think this is an excellent vehicle. Really, the only downside I didn't like, tires are okay. You know, they do have kind of the standard offset as the other Arrma, like granite and stuff like that, so they are compatible. The offset is fairly, you know, kind of wide out. There are no foams in the wheels and tires, so while from a design standpoint, not a big fan of that. They are drills, which is nice, but performance-wise, these actually work a little bit better than foam tiles, and I'll explain more about that in the performance category. But kind of design-wise, probably the only thing I didn't really like. But yeah, one other thing to note: these body posts do tend to get stuck within the chassis. So I know a lot of people complain about that on the Mojave. I don't think it's that big of a deal on the Mojave, but on this, I actually think it's worse. I think it's harder to pull this out if you're running this thing on dirt because the body doesn't even really hold it in that well. So you're kind of grabbing it from underneath. The body clips can also fall out. I've had these pop out while driving under, you know, fairly substantial conditions. I was launching this thing like 15-20 feet high. So that is another area that I think is a downside. And probably the one main thing, the motor is kind of limited in what you can actually fit. So it is a 36mm wide hole, so you will have to buy a 36mm cam motor, and you will need at least a 60mm long because there's just no room for the wires to kind of stick out if you used like a really short motor. So it is somewhat limiting in what you can run motor-wise, but you know, 3660 works pretty well, so not a major concern to me. In the design category, we're gonna give it 5 stars. This is best in class. I think it beats all the other vehicles you can get out there. This is obviously also the newest, and I think they pretty much learned everything they had with the Voltage, improved all those things, and looked at the weaknesses of other vehicles on the market, came up with like something that I think is best in class. So the Gorgon out of the box does go about 23 to 25 miles per hour depending on, you know, what type of battery you're using. That is pretty quick. Like I mentioned, it's faster than I think every other two-wheel drive, you know, sort of entry-level monster truck you can buy out there. It is brushed, so not super fast, but at that price point, I think it's more than adequate and actually really, really good. Tire-wise, you know, there's a lot of complaints about no foams in these tires, and I did actually try some granite tires. So I do have a granite 4x4, and I was running these, I forget what they're called, the Fortress tires or something like that. They do not work as well. Actually, they feel really hard, really stiff. This is a very, very light vehicle. Coming out of the box, I didn't weigh it, but it is all plastic. You know, there's nothing really substantial in this vehicle. Even the chassis is all plastic. Not only that, it is mid-motor. So So mid-motor vehicles have some advantages. They actually steer a little bit better. They carry the weight in the middle of the vehicle. Obviously, they're a little more balanced front to back, so they tend to sort of handle better, steer a little bit better, kind of get in and out of the corners better. But the one area they really lack is in traction. With that motor and all the heavy electronics here in the middle, you don't have much weight on the back tires. So if you're running something like this, which is very stiff, and you have no weight on it, well, they really just don't dig into the ground. This might work okay on grass, but I would say for actual dirt, the non-foamed, whatever these call them, these monster truck tires, actually worked better. So, you know, a lot of people think they made a cost savings decision running no foams. Maybe, you know, it would have cost them a couple bucks, but I think if it had foams in these tires, it would actually be way too light and you would not get much traction with this on dirt. As is, it's adequate. You know, I still don't think this is the greatest tire, but if you ran foams, you would probably have to add a ton of weight, like a really heavy battery, maybe some weight here on the end, to get that traction that you want in two-wheel drive vehicles. So yeah, I think performance-wise, the traction actually is okay. It's not great, obviously, with mid-motor, but on dirt, it works okay with those tires. Steering is excellent. Steering is plenty fast, plenty, you know, torquey enough. No issues there. I think it actually steers really, really well out of the box. You'll tend to oversteer sometimes because you are lacking a little bit of that rear traction. But performance-wise, I also think this is best in class. It handles the best. It's got plenty of traction in sort of those low traction surfaces. It's got plenty of speed. This is a very good vehicle in terms of performance. Obviously, for an entry-level vehicle, it's not going to compare to those $300, $400, $500 like 3S, 4S, 6S vehicles. But for a 2S or nickel metal hydride vehicle, entry-level under 150 bucks, I think this is best in class. I'm going to give it 5 stars in the performance category. Obviously, if you mount up a brushless system, I would recommend putting in like a 43, probably like a 4,000 to 4,500 kV motor if you can find one. This is a Hobby Store. I'll link in the description below where you can pick one of these up. But you really want something like that if you're running 2S. Like I mentioned, the battery compartment does not hold 3S particularly well. I think the transmission will hold up. I know a lot of people are running like crazy amounts of power through this thing. It is a plastic geared transmission, but they are super YT, so it does actually allow you to run fairly strong motors and ESCs. And the slipper you can obviously tighten or loosen as necessary for those types of motors. But yeah, if you're running like a standard 2S pack, which is kind of what this thing is designed for, somewhere in that 4,000 to 4,500 kV motor I think will work best. Also, pinion gear wise, I am running the largest you can fit, which I think is 17 tooth. I was not able to fit an 18 tooth, but 17 tooth with that high kV motor works really, really well on 2S. So performance wise, 5 stars. You know, brushless power is definitely where you're going to get a lot of bang for the buck. I think you can pick this up fairly cheaply. The motor like 35 bucks, EC probably 50 bucks or less. So not super expensive, but yeah, that's kind of the area most people are going to go with performance wise as an upgrade. But out of the box, it runs great, and it'll certainly be very entertaining if this is your first RC car. In terms of durability, nothing really has broken. You know, I launched this thing up 20 feet high, landed on the roof, I've crashed into things, flipped it, all that kind of stuff. Nothing has broken in the tires. You know, it even remained glued, so that's pretty nice. The drive shafts are quite a bit improved from the old one, which used to, you know, tear up the outdrives. They had plastic outdrives that would tend to fail. The shocks could definitely fail on the old ones, but these seem like upgraded shocks. They're very similar to the 4x4 lineup, if not exactly the same parts. Bumper works really well. Nothing has broken there. Really, the only concern I had is the body. This is not a Lexan body as far as I can tell. I'm pretty sure it's not Lexan. I'm pretty sure it's like PVC, but it is pretty much falling apart. The front, yeah, it's barely held together. It'll probably destroy the next time I land on its roof. I'm not sure this thing will hold up. But yeah, that's kind of the only area I feel like is a weakness. But because of the body, I'm not going to give it full 5 stars. Other vehicles out there I think have better and more durable bodies. This one is on the weak side in my opinion. The Trax is also, again, a little bit on the weak side. But yeah, I'm going to give it 4 stars in the durability category. This thing's pretty good, not perfect. But as long as you get an aftermarket body, I think you have something that is best in class. Now, Arrma is one of the bigger brands in the bashing segment. Certainly an advantage to go with a larger brand like that. It is easier to get parts. Hobby shops are going to carry Arrma parts. I think this will be a pretty popular vehicle, so no real issues. Usually at launch, Arrma is not that great about providing all the aftermarket or replacement parts, but since this thing is so durable, it's not as big of a deal. I'm going to give 4 stars in the support and maintenance category. Working on this thing is, again, I think pretty easy. You know, I assembled this as a kid. kit. It took me about 45 minutes, so I'm pretty familiar with how it comes apart, and pretty much everything is easy to get to. If you can build it in 45 minutes, that means you can completely disassemble in 45 minutes, which means everything is very easy to access. Even the diff, I think, is like 4 screws from the bottom, remove the back plate, remove the bumper, and then you can kind of like drop it or slide out from the bottom. Slipper does come out with like the 2 screws here. You do have to leave the cover on. The only thing I kind of didn't like about the slipper design is it is not possible to adjust the slipper without pulling the cover, which is 2 screws, and then you got to kind of toy with it and then remount it. So other vehicles out there do have adjustable slippers without removing the cover, but you know, that's fine, not a big deal. But yeah, support and maintenance wise, this is not best in class. I would say Traxxas in general has the best support and maintenance. You can always call them like 7 days a week, and then parts availability is a little bit better on Traxxas. But Arrma, I would say, is second best within this class. I'm gonna get 4 stars in the support and maintenance category. Working on this thing is a breeze, certainly better than the other vehicles out there, but I don't think it has the best support out there. The Gorgon sells for $140 for the standard edition, and then $170 if you want the radio run or the kit, which also comes with a battery and charger. So that, I think, is pretty cheap. The Stampede 2-wheel drive is $200. I don't think it's quite as nicely equipped. Like the radio on the Spectrum, I think, is a little better. The electronics, I think, is a little bit better on this than the Stampede. The E6 MT kind of varies in price. It's between $160 and $180 depending on which edition you get. That tends to be a little bit more. I don't think it's any better equipped. In fact, I think the electronics on that thing is worse. So that, I think, is a worse value. And then the Voltage, when it first came out, I think it's around $150. They varied in price quite a bit through the life of that product, and I think towards the end it was like $80 or $100, and I think at that price is an excellent value. But you know, the price fluctuates quite a bit, and this is substantially better than that Voltage. The electronics is better, the design is better, the durability better, the performance better. So everything's better, I think, on this vehicle, and I think you get more in the box than you did with the original Voltage. So even though this is more, I think you get more for your money as well. I mean, the slipper alone is probably like a $30 upgrade, and not even available on the Voltage. So yeah, price-wise, value-wise, I think this is 5 stars. I think this is the best deal you can get within that entry-level 2-wheel drive monster truck 10 scale class. I heartily recommend this in terms of bang for the buck. This is an excellent vehicle, and combined with all the other categories, you can see that this is quite a bit of a winner. So yeah, final thoughts on the Gorgon. I think this is going to be kind of the sleeper hit of the year for 2023. I think this is going to exceed Arrma's expectations for how popular this thing is. One funny thing with Horizon is over the last few years, TLR, which is their racing division, they are not coming out with any 10 scale vehicles. They've been super quiet, and I know some of their engineers, some of their product managers and stuff are working on other Horizon products, and I think you get a little bit of a racing performance background with this vehicle. I'm sure some of those guys had a little bit of input on the suspension tuning, getting to drive wide, and even things like the slipper clutch, the mid-motor thing. They got it driving really, really well for something that looks kind of basic, right? If you look at it, no foam in the tires, high standard gravity chassis, this massive, kind of heavy body up top, brushed motor. It doesn't look like it would perform that well, but it really, really does. It drives great out of the box in all surfaces, which is kind of the part that surprised me. Usually when I see a vehicle with these types of tires, it doesn't look like it's going to drive very well, but this really nailed it in the performance category. But yeah, if you look across the entire spectrum of ratings, electronics, design, performance, those are all 5 stars, values 5 stars, really durability, a little bit weak on that body, and then the support and maintenance, they're never going to be quite up to Traxxas's level, but they're getting there, and they certainly have been improving. And so across the board, this is a winner. If you're concerned, you're not really sure whether you want to buy this or not, have been thinking about, I think this is an excellent vehicle, especially if it's your first RC car, and especially if you want something that comes as a kit. You can buy this in the black edition, which is the kit version, and you can assemble it. It's kind of a fun thing. It's not hard to do, kind of idiot proof. It's really hard to get wrong. I think anybody could build this, even if they have no experience with RC cars, and have a fun time driving it afterwards. Even someone like me who has tons of RC cars, I've probably had close to 100 in my life. This is still a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and I've driven it quite a bit over the last couple of weeks just testing it, and surprisingly, there's really nothing wrong with it other than the body tends to break. But I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll have links in the description below where you can pick one of these up. That does help support the channel if you like content like this, but don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon, and thanks for watching.